Welcome to the IDP Hunting Grounds podcast. I'm your host, Steve Hungar. You can find me on Twitter at IDP Hunter. Tonight, I'm joined by a special guest, Mase Rinney. His handle is Cali King 49er 17, whatever that is. Well, let me tell you about Mase. Okay, Mase is a writer, a content creator, and he's a podcaster. He has worked formerly with IDP guys. He has worked formerly at IDP Army. He works at the Fantasy Six Pack now. How you doing, Mase?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on. And I don't really consider it work, honestly, as long as you're having fun, right?
Learning. I guess. And I'm having fun trying to figure out that name. What is a Cali King 9er 17er? What is that about?
So Cali is where I'm from, California. King, I am a Sacramento Kings hardcore basketball fan. Tough for us there for a while, so I wanted to represent that. I like the 49ers, obviously, from the backdrop and things behind me. And I got out of the service in 2017. I was in the Army for just under 10 years.
And appreciate your service, my friend.
Yeah, you as well.
There's a lot of things you do. What I left off of your introduction, because I kind of wanted to give time to kind of praise you and highlight you, you're an ECR Ranker on Fantasy Pros. Mase, I don't know if you know this, but week 17, you were the number one IDP ranker. Week 19, I had to pull up some stats on you. You were actually number 3. Week 8, you were number 2, and I understand you were pretty good at offense as well.
Sometimes, man, I'll get hot on like kickers or tight ends or something randomly one week. But I don't know. I'm kind of like a big wave ranker, I guess I like to say. I like to either just crash and look completely hideous or finish up on top by taking some risks, man. You know, you can't always do a consensus, although they are consensus rankings, I guess.
What can't you do, you know?
I don't know. Clean my house correctly. That's my wife. I try, man.
Hopefully she's not listening, but yeah. No. Hey, so I brought you on tonight because you wrote a very smart article, and I just love having smart people on that just make me grow, they make me better. You wrote an article about IDP when the draft positional groups. I guess in the old days we'd call this value-based drafting. So I kind of wanted to talk about that article with you tonight, if that's okay. Question for you: what do you hope the audience learns from you tonight?
I don't know, honestly, I'm just happy that anyone's here listening. First off, that's really cool to be able to do something and write this and then have someone tell you that it's smart content when it's just something that, you wake up in the morning earlier than your family to do something, or you stay up later or do whatever. The grind, man, you know how it is. So just to even come on and be able to talk about something like this, a game, you know what I mean? It's a luxury. It's cool. It's really just a dream in itself. But
and it really is, especially with IDP. There's so many different scoring formats, right?
No, for sure. And that's kind of what this was getting into. So a buddy of mine, Greg Kellogg, he's a Hall of Fame writer. He, I guess after some time, joined the IDP League with me and was asking me when to draft position groups. Well, he meant it for offense and defense, which is an article that I wrote this year. But the first article I wrote was just strictly IDP. I couldn't get out of my box, I guess, early enough. But so last year I wrote this article, and it's essentially when you draft players based on your scoring format. And in IDP, we don't have a PPR, half PPR. We have, like you said, a backdrop, a very wasteland of formats, I guess you could say, even going down for true position, or if you're only going to have D end or an edge, or is he a linebacker? It gets nasty out there. So just looking at the, I guess, 3 biggest scoring formats, in my opinion, and then kind of taking it from that angle to give people guidance.
So there's a famous quote one of my buddies was saying, if you want to watch Twitter melt, put a math problem with parentheses out there, or talk about scoring settings. And you see it. A lot of our friends, a lot of people we know, they want to argue scoring things. I don't. I just want to know what I'm in and how to maximize and how to exploit those scoring settings. So your article cleverly put it together. There's 3 major types of scoring settings. Based on what league you're in, what do you prefer? I guess that's the best way to put it. And I guess that first one was what, Fantasy Pro scoring, correct?
Yeah, that's the one that we use for the ECR right there. The one that you got up. Solo tackles 1.5, assisted tackles half of that, tackle for loss are 2. The big thing is that your sacks are 4 points and your fumbles both of them are 4 points as well. And you don't get any points for sack yardage or anything like that. So
yeah, it's a pretty watered down scoring setting. You can see that right here, as opposed to the exotic ones we play in.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, how would you exploit that?
I don't know. This is one of those formats, kind of like bare bones you put down in your league in the beginning, and then you kind of add to or take away from it. But I don't know. I guess I would just say look for the certain tiers of players, right? Like you don't get extra points for pulling people down for sacks, so maybe you might want to prioritize linebacker early, do something like that. In this format, I'm not going to be taking a defensive back for a while. And I might just wait and kind of take the crumbs as far as that goes, and just load up on my defensive linemen and my linebackers. Now, it also depends on if you're playing true position. Like we talked about, your defensive tackles, your edge, things like that. It can get kind of spicy, but just for basic. To exploit this, I would go linebacker and edge fairly early.
Yeah, it seems very linebacker. We actually did some math on another network when we were doing the scoring. If you look at the sacks, they're worth 4, and we just did for comparison. We did that TJ Watt breakout season when he had the 22.5 sacks a couple of years ago. So we added that up and we came up with 22.5 times 4. We came up with 90 points. So that was our baseline, 90 points. And then we compared that to the linebackers in that. And so what was it? It was 1.5 tackles. So we divided the 90 points by 125. See what we did there? And that came out to 60 tackles. So the TJ Watt character, the highest producing sack guy, was equivalent to a 60 tackle season. That's like a 2-down linebacker. We went even further back and we did who was a 60 tackle guy that season? It was guys you never even heard of. It was like safeties. It was linebacker. I'm like, who are these guys? So, yeah, a linebacker would have to totally outdo himself in this format. And that's what you kind of wrote in there. You wrote that. You wrote the DL1 gets 236.5 fantasy points compared to a DL10, 169. There's not that much of a drop-off. I think the value comes in when you're taking a linebacker, right? You get your 3-down linebacker guys, you get them in a hurry, right?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on your placement in the draft. If other people have the same mindset that you do, they might be doing that as well. So you said, I think it was like 50 or 60 points, kind of was a drop off from a defensive lineman 1 to the 10. So if you have to go ahead and get a Max Crosby or a TJ Watt, like you were saying, you got to do what you got to do in that first round if you're at the other end of it. But then when you come back around, snake, hopefully, if that's the format that you're doing for the draft, then you can go ahead and take that linebacker, and you're going to want one of those green dot guys because you want someone that's going to be on the field, right?
Right. And then also in your article as well, not only does it favor it, but look at a DB10, 177.3 points. Look at an LB10, 225 points. Holy smokes. You're taking safeties, I'm taking linebackers. I'm going to beat you each round just by knowing my format.
Yep, 100%. Smart drafting right there.
Yeah, so I really like that. And Fantasy Pros is pretty basic. Any other thoughts on Fantasy Pros? Anything else you want to talk about there?
Yeah, like I said, I like to start all of my leagues with this scoring format for the most part, just because this is what what we rank on the ECR. A lot of people use it, so it's got a solid baseline, and people are familiar with it. So whenever you are doing something, you can say, well, refer to these rankings. Well, now you have a resource of rankers and people who are also on the same, mindset setting. So you can also point people in that direction. It helps a lot.
Gotcha. So you got your 3 scorings, your Fantasy Pros, your 1, 2, 3, and then your big 3 scoring. I guess back in my day they'd call that sack heavy scoring or big play scoring. Which one do you normally play in? Which ones do you prefer?
Honestly, I like ones that have IDP points balanced with offensive points because it takes people out of their box and makes them think outside of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just like to know my format before I get into it. If I had to pick one, honestly, it would probably be IDP 1, 2, 3, just because I'm so familiar with it.
We'll do 1, 2, 3 at the end. What I wanted to do is I wanted to kind of explain what you just said. Maybe we can walk that back.
Okay.
To the audience at home. What Mase is saying is he'll take sacks, and this is kind of how I do my drafts too. Value-based drafting. I'll take my sacks and I'll take my tackles and I'll convert. So if you're in a league, guys, and you get 6 points a sack and you get 2 points a tackle, well, your ratio is 3-1. Okay. Anything under 3-1, there's a lot of leagues out there getting 2.2 sacks points for a tackle or vice versa. Anything under that, you're in an incredibly tackle heavy league. I'm in a league right now, has 4 flexes, 2 linebackers, and it's 2-1. Are you kidding me? I'm taking all the 3 down linebackers I can. You're stupid. They're not looking at it, right?
Yep.
If you're in what you just said, a 4.5 ratio to 1, that's more of a balanced based blending, right? Where it gets interesting, and this is what I have on the screen, these big 3, these big play, these are fun for best balls. We were in a couple best ball drafts last year where it was sack heavy crazy of 5 points or more.
So you know, that thing, man.
Those were
like 5th or 6th.
Those were fun. And if you remember here, if I may, I just want to kind of break this down just a little bit to the audience at home. So this is where it gets a little more advanced. When you look at sacks, you're seeing the 5 points, right? Now there's a lot more details on this one than we did on the first one, right? So for this big play, big 3 scoring, if you will, sack heavy scoring, you look at the sacks first, you're getting 5. Okay. Yeah, the tackles are 1.25. We'll get to that, everybody. The sacks are 5, but it doesn't end there, does it, Mase? You got to put those hits on the quarterback. You get 2. So 5 plus 2 is 7. What else do you get when you hit the quarterback and get the sack? You get tackles for a loss. So now we're at 3. 5, 2, 3. So now we're at 10 points. But it doesn't end there, guys. 0.1 yards per sack yard. The average play, if you were to Google this, I did on the other pod, it's like 6 yards, 6.5 yards you lose per play. So really you get another half point. So what did we get when that player broke through and we got the sack in this kind of format? We got 10.5 points compared to 1.25. Okay. I'm no mathematician, but if I was to argue that, it's going to be incredibly sack heavy favored, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm no mathematician, but I'm just going to add it up for the audience at home, okay? I'm just going to add that up right here in front of you. So let's say 10.5, and we're going to divide that sucker. Yeah, I'm using a calculator. Don't judge me out there. I've been out of school a little bit, okay? Okay, that's 8.4, 8.4 to 1. So according to our format, this is a sack-heavy league, right?
Oh, 100%. That intersection.
Yeah. Definitely according to this. With your big play, it kind of changes up a bit on us, right? So now we're definitely in a big play, sack heavy. What's your strategies for this one? What kind of stuff do you like to employ here?
So obviously, I mean, you kind of spelled it out there for us with that whole math magician deal you got going on, man.
Do you do that? Because I love to do that everywhere I go.
Dude, you just whip out your calculator and you're like, hold on, guys. Like, see if you got one on your phone. You're like, no, I'm thinking, hold on.
Oh, too funny. I like to do it in my head and go with it. That helps me draft.
Yeah. So yeah, I want to get edge early. If a lot of the edge guys run out, top 4 or 5 picks are all edge. You can look at linebackers. Just look at guys who are more active in the sack game, guys that they're going to be pressuring, off-ball guys that are putting themselves in situations to get better stuff, kind of like a Roquan Smith, someone like that.
I think you nailed it, man. Usually my draft strategy is the same. I'm looking for a hybrid. I'm looking for an edge because you can kind of fill them in. I don't care what the format is. I'll play Mac or I'll play Harold Landry or Charles Granderson. I'll play him at linebacker. It looks crazy, but I'll get as many of them sack guys. So I guess a good strategy, and you outlined it in your article, get the hybrids first, right? And then go and get the elite DLs and what have you, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's nice to have the hybrids because you can flip them. Obviously, your roster construction kind of depends on that. And also if you're going to be using Sleeper or Yahoo or like MFL, all of the stuff changes. And then you also have leagues that make up their own. So you could have guys that might not be your dual eligibility that are in other leagues. So,
but you know what's interesting in both of the formats we just did, the Fantasy Pros and the Big 3, I think it'd be an advantageous to punt defensive back, huh? What do you say?
Yeah, for the most part, I'm punting defensive back, unless if there's a defensive back that's playing linebacker or something. If I'm deep, I mean, not deep into the draft, but mid to whatever, maybe I'll make a reach on a guy. I was definitely doing it on like Cam Curl last year. kind of paid for it a little bit, but you see these guys that step into the box and kind of play that role. So, I mean, yeah, but at the same time, there's so many guys, and the NFL is kind of about covering the field now and just making open ball tackles at the safety position. So there are a lot of guys you pop in. You also have cornerbacks who are now playing that nickel kind of fill-in slot / blitz / that Snead, I guess, role. If you want to,
ain't that the truth? Yeah, on that note, too, and I don't have the stats in front of me, but holy cow, do players change from one scoring setup to another. An example right now, you just said a corner. Daryl Bland in this is a top 5 play. In our fantasy, what's that?
Yeah, Daryl Bland, if you have him in this with the interception, return yards, touchdowns, everything, it's like getting a sack fumble and taking it to the house. You know what I mean? Those are
Jason Penix is another one. Jason Penix is another one in this. Blows it out of the water.
It's just hard because you can't – it's hard to gauge interceptions. It's hard to gauge pass deflections. It's all about getting targeted, things like that. So a guy that was hot one year might not get targeted so much. You know, like Jalen Ramsey, hell of a player, really good some years when he's playing slot. But when he's playing outside, you're not targeting him because you don't want to throw an interception unless you're like Aaron Rodgers. You know what I mean?
True. So, most of our leagues are tackle-centric. But this is fun, too. I really enjoy this in a best ball. You know, because like anything can happen. I have a whole bench to see what's up. But I wouldn't know when to play the Jason Penix or the Bland to benefit myself. The opposite is true. I went back and I did some digging. I'm like, well, what are some guys we value in the Fantasy Pros format? Because me and you both rank off of that. What do we value? Guys like Cameron Curl, for example, guys like Bynum, that they're tackle heavy. They're probably top 15s in ours. You look on this one, they're nowhere to be found. You know, so it's all about knowing your scoring settings, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, some guy can be really good in one scoring format and maybe not horrible in another, but not the best. So if you're reaching on the person that's not in the best position just because of the scoring format and because of the name, you're putting yourself at a very big disadvantage.
You just said another thing. You just said another thought on my mind, okay? And we have friends of ours that do this, and you know, they're quote-unquote rankers as well. You'll see a lot of guys take Sauce Gardner in the first round, huh? That's a mistake.
It's true position, and that's your guy, man.
I will wait 4 more rounds, and I'll take the guy opposite of Sauce Gardner, and I'll get those deflections. But I
1,000 targets on.
I got this. I guess this was deleted on the other podcast I did, right? And I was like, dude, you know, it was great. You enjoyed doing when I did the quick math and everything. Okay. Yeah. There's guys out there. That's how we had to learn. We had to get the notepad and fill it all out, whatever, right? Before the ADP, we had to do the value-based scoring. And that's kind of what it was. And that's what got me hooked to IDP. I'm like, so you mean if I put the work in, I can figure it out? But there's guys that have been playing as long as we have that don't do this. And I put this on the other podcast, and they took it out. I don't care somebody's rank. I don't care how long they've been playing. Well, I've been playing since 2005. Why are you in 5th place, bro? Why are you in 5th place every year if you've been playing since 2005? You don't know how to work a scoring format? You never heard of this stuff? You never heard what Mase is putting out to the public for free, for good? What's up with that? And they took it out because like maybe that's offensive. But give me somebody brand new, which is what these podcasts are for. Give me somebody who's willing to learn. Give me that new brain that we can mold together and put out some good content. You know what I mean?
Well, let me say this. I will say that, I mean, hopefully you put yourself in a situation every year to be able to, you know, bring home the hardware. But if you're consistently making the playoffs, there's just, I mean, dude, sometimes the fantasy gods just come through and sweep you on a week, man. It just happens. So as long as you're consistently in the playoffs and you're making moves, staying active, and not being a complete a-hole, I think you'll be all right.
Yeah, that's the key to it. You know, win like Tom Brady. Be kind. You know, be kind. Yeah. But it drives me nuts between me and you when some guy gets a fluky player. Like a couple of years ago, it was Alvin Kamara with that 5-touchdown game. It's forever in my mind. It's forever burned in my skull. You can make all the right moves. That's kind of why I like the deeper leagues, like that 32 we're in. The more flex spots we have, the less likely I can stop the bleeding for some freak week. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the 32 is a beast in its own. My team is absolutely horrendous, and no one is taking any trades, and I have no draft picks, so I got to figure that thing out.
I'll end up biting. A league we played in 2 years ago. Do you remember King of IDP? It was a 1-2-3 scorer. I ended up going in a championship last year, and I got wrecked by some good luck. and it is what it is. But I drafted based on value. I drafted all the linebackers, what have you. Well, IDP 1, 2, 3. I'll let you kick it off. What do you normally do in setups like this? Hold on. Let's look at the math here. So we got 6 sacks. You got the 7, the quarterback. You like when I do the 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 to the 9.5.
6.
9.5, and then you get 2 for the tackles. So when you add that up, it comes out to like 4.1 or less, right? So we're in a more balanced to tackle-ish format on this one. But what do you do on this one? How do you exploit it, attack it? What's your strategies?
So this one, I just want to make sure that I'm more of in my newer article, I talk about a 10 pull strategy. So opposed to just going all in on one position, I'll get maybe a green dot guy and an edge, and then kind of get a feel for the draft room and see what everyone else is doing. And if everyone else is loading up on one position, then maybe I'll just load up on the other and then wait for the fallout and try to pick up the pieces with some dual eligibility guys or do whatever. I just know that I'm not taking a defensive back in the first 4 or 5 rounds, probably. Unless I'm like heavily intoxicated and like really feeling myself and someone's talking to me about Cam Curl or something, like, I don't know.
When they created, I guess Jordan Raines created this format and then Sleeper adopted it. This is your default scoring format. In 1, 2, 3, it's a simple format. 1 point, you get your little stats. You get your assisted tackles, your QB hits. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 2 points, you get solo tackles, the good stuff, the tackle for a loss. And then 3 points is like the holy moly, the pass deflections, the forced fumbles, block kicks, interception sacks. And then if you want to go even farther to 6 point, you'll have like interception, stuff like that. But it's a simple format. 1 level, 1 point, 2 points, 3 points. It doesn't have to be 1, 2, 3. So a lot of people forget. It could be 2, 4, 6. It could be 3, 6, 9. You could put the 3 levels and compare it to your balanced scoring. So these are good. This is a good one for a combined draft. This is a good one to compare and contrast and have the numbers kind of sort of good. But you're right. You don't go after one particular category in this one.
No, not really. I'm really just going to get a feel for the room and go in, depending on my draft position. If I'm earlier, I might feel a little bit more confident waiting on a linebacker just because there are 32 guys that are going to be in there. Well, maybe not 32. We'll say 21 to 25 that are going to hold the green dot and get some time. You still might be able to wait and get someone like a Logan Wilson just to kind of name drop or something. Someone who's going to be consistently there. So probably edge if I can, and then go for a linebacker, I guess.
So for me, it is balanced. But for me, for my thinking, I'm still looking at points. And 2 points you're getting for a tackle. That's incredibly kind. This is the highest format for that because I know I can gauge a tackle. I know each year you look at the top 10 guys on tackles and snap counts. Yeah. Snap count tackle. That's where a lot of my articles are written because I'm usually playing in one of these or Fantasy Pros, right? So I can gauge a linebacker. A linebacker is a good pick for me. So in my opinion, I'm getting a lot of linebackers in here. I'll sneak up, get an elite DL once in a while, what have you. But because of that 2 points I'm getting, this is the only format that allows you to do that. So I'm still going linebacker. Even though it's balanced, it says it's balanced, I'm still going that because I can gauge a tackle and I can gauge a snap, but I can't gauge when the guy's getting a sack. Look at the top 10 guys every season with linebacker tackles. Look at the top 10 guys with sacks, and they change, don't they? They change interchange every year.
Yeah, for sure. But if I can get an edge guy like a Max Crosby or someone that puts himself in a position to get tackles and then the sacks, what do you have, like 12 to 15? That's really, really good for that position. But if you look at that position, there's a lot of scarcity in that tackle range. So, you'll be missing out on probably an elite linebacker, but there are other linebackers who aren't so elite, like an Aziz Al-Shaair or someone you can get later on that are still going to be racking up tackles. You know what I'm saying?
Good point.
So, Max Crosby isn't going to be there at the turn or whatever if you're at the back end. He's probably the first guys off. So
this format would be excellent for tackle and tackle for loss guys. Like you said, Crosby, Daniel Hunter's one, Granderson's one. That would be good if you can get one of those guys and then just volume-based linebackers. So you know what else, too, I noticed here, Mase, in this format, too, when you're looking at, like, pass deflections and what have you.
Yeah.
This is probably the best format for defensive backs. Like I said, I punted the other two. Here you can make a case for, let me move up and get a guy, whatever. You're getting 3 points of pass defense. You're not getting that in any other format. But my devil's advocate, my argument here, that position is so darn volatile. Like you, I'd rather get the elite linemen or the linebackers. For this one, I would prefer it just because I can gauge that position. I'm not sure of this, but you're not wrong. If you see guys moving up, they're looking at the scoring. It's just that I don't know about you. I can't accurately predict the dart throw what a secondary guy is going to do each year.
No, I love, like, my favorite kind of safety is a guy that will step in the box and almost kind of play linebacker, because with the way the league's going, you got these speed guys going to slot, you got tight ends that are looking like wide receivers and kind of everything in between. So these linebackers are just getting dusted in coverage, man. So to have a safety that can roll down and kind of double play that, it's really, really, really good for a defense. Also, that puts himself in position to play on the run or play on the pass. So that's kind
I'm glad you said that. On that note, too, the evolution in the NFL. Gone are the days of these 250-pound linebackers. You're seeing a lot of these guys like Roquan Smith, Fred Warner. A lot of these guys are like 225, 238 in there because they got to cover too, right?
Yeah. So there's one guy in the upcoming draft I want to shout because he hasn't really got a lot of noise, but he's out of Wisconsin, Mamea Njongmeta. He is exactly what you're talking about, that old school, just stacked linebacker. Not going to do much in coverage or nothing, but just you don't want to get caught in the lane while he's running downhill because he's going to smash it.
But, when you look at it, though, right, most teams have 100% guy, maybe. So there's probably like 32 guys. Yeah. You're probably only playing 2 linebackers nowadays because a lot of teams are playing nickels and dimes to keep up with the pass. Yeah. So you're seeing that third linebacker spot. You're either having another safety. A lot of teams are playing 3 safeties now or corner. Yep. So the NFL has changed. So has our fantasy football game. You can get a lot of defensive backs later now. You can get a lot of defensive linemen. I would say from DL 30 to 50, you can punt those guys. Linebacker is getting more harder than ever and challenging to find. So,
yeah. And it's nice in some leagues. You get a guy like Marquise Bell for Dallas last year, who's a DB that's playing linebacker. So you can slot him in the defensive back position. It's like a cheat code.
Gotcha. But yeah, I think we covered it. I mean, we talked it pretty fast. The fantasy pros, the big 3 scoring, the 1, 2, 3 scoring. The key is to know what you're in and where you want to draft. And like I said, your article. If anybody at home wants to check that article out, it's pretty comprehensive. I mean, we hit the highlights of it. Mase, was there anything else in that article that you wanted to talk about?
Not really. Just stay like water when you draft and look at your points and, I don't know, trust yourself, man.
Stay like water. What's that from? Bruce Lee, Karate Kid? Okay, I was going to say it was something. I've heard that before. Stay like water. And you're not wrong. Some joker in the league is going to go the opposite of everything we just said, and he's going to hit,
Well, that's the beauty of fantasy. That's why you get trades. Some people believe in this guy, some people believe in that guy.
Exactly. And I hate being like, oh, you absolutely need to take this and that. Again, with our analyzation, we're looking for the best routes to take, and hopefully someone out there learned from us today. Mase, tell the audience at home where they could find you.
Yeah, I'm mostly on the slums of Twitter. You can find me on my ad. Cali King 49er17 is previously broken down earlier in the episode. On Fantasy 6-Pack writing, kind of, sort of, not really. And I am not consistently, but as much as my kids will let me, I'm on the ECR on Fantasy Pros, updating my stuff. So hopefully we get a dynasty rankings out soon. I've kind of been slacking on that. I need to get on it. I'm sure Joe's not too happy. So,
and he's one of the smartest guys I know out in the community. He's been doing this a while. And I just want to say he's a good friend of mine as well. And I just want to say thank you for your friendship. You've always been very kind. They're always providing wisdom to us out here. And hopefully you have fun, and hopefully we'll do more of these podcasts soon.
Yeah, no, 100%. I hope so. I hope to get more active in writing, more active in the game. The draft comes around, man. I'm going to be in it. I'm going to be on Twitter looking at all the stuff. We got these division articles that we're going to start hammering out. I'm actually really excited for that. And I appreciate your friendship, man, your phone calls, all that stuff. IDP to the moon, baby. Let's do it.
Right back to you. Next week we're gonna have AJ Beal come on. We're gonna talk about transition tags. And then we're gonna have Jamie come on. Jamie Perot going for 2. We're gonna talk about the movie The Program. We got a whole entire crazy week this week. Mase, I'd love to have you back on. For the audience, please subscribe if you like this content. IDP Hunting Ground. Okay? We're going to call it. You guys have a good night.